So start writing all that list of what you really love. And then also make the list of, hey, I didn't like this so much. This was not something that made me feel good. Um, My son recently broke up with his girlfriend and is wanting to start dating again. I wonder what he can do to find intentional and meaningful dates. How can he start with this in mind? Well, I think you've kind of answered part of it, which is get him to really sit in his mind, right? With his mind, maybe if he's open to a meditation, and think about how he would feel with a person that he's really excited to be with, someone that's able to support him and his mission and what he's here to do on planet Earth. But I think even before that, it's getting that trusty little notebook out, even if it's just a random piece of paper. Start writing, like from all my previous relationships, what were the aspects that I just absolutely loved about this person? Like, and how did I feel when they did those things? Really digging in and seeing like, gosh, what are, from all the people I've dated, and if it's only a couple, that's fine. You can go into like my relationships in general, like what do I love about so-and-so when they do this, and when they help me with that, or they support me in this way, so start writing all that list of what you really love. And then also make the list of, hey, I didn't like this so much. This was not something that made me feel good. And then ask the question, okay, I know if this is too much for your son, it's okay. But I have a feeling that he'd be really open to this, actually, especially if he's a little bit older. Like, I don't mean old, but I mean, like not his first relationships in life, where he can actually reflect back and think, what was the lesson? Like, what did I call that person in for? It's obviously not to be a lifetime partner because they've broken up, whoever those people are in the past. But what is it that I called them in for? What did I learn from them? How did I grow from them? And that's also really helpful. And how did I maybe hinder their growth? How did I contribute to the relationship? What do I want to do different? How do I want to feel different? How do I want to act different? Do I want to listen more? Do I want to talk and share more? Do I want to, what do I want to do in my next relationship? It's such a beautiful time. And if he's willing to just sit with himself and really just feel into like all the things that make him feel good and all the things that he needs. Okay, this is kind of random that's coming to mind to share. Many years ago, I was working in the pharmaceutical industry in my marketing role. I was living in Singapore. I was based in Singapore, but I had all of Asia Pacific, and one of the countries that I would go to visit with the marketing teams was India. And so, a long story longer, I one day said, would it be okay if I asked you a personal question? Most of the team were men. I believe at the time there might have been one or two women. It was a lunchtime meeting. And I said, could I ask a personal question? And they said, sure. And I said, well, have you been in an arranged marriage, or were you able to just go out and date? And he said, oh yes, no, absolutely, an arranged marriage. And I was like, could you share a little bit more about that? And I was so fascinated. I thought that was like a thing of the past, right? And I was so culturally naive at that time. And his sentiments were so beautiful. I'm not saying that this is what happens for everybody in that culture, but if we all kind of took a little pearl from what I'm about to share from his story, I think it would be really helpful for all of us. And he said, when I met my wife, I knew that our families had already sort of vetted each other, right? They'd already talked to each other. Like the families knew that they were already going to get along. And how wonderful is that, right? To know that your families have already agreed. They're not like sort of being, pushed into being the in-laws. He said, so that really helps, number one. But number two, when I met my wife and she walked in the room, he said, I just knew immediately that I wanted her as my wife. He said, I just felt it intuitively. He said, and if I didn't, I can say no. He's like, we're not forced. But the part that was probably the most important to me was, he said, after I met her and she said yes, I knew that the only thing that I was really called to do in this relationship with her was to get to know her soul and to just grow with her and to share with her and to explore her. Right. And I was just like, oh my goodness, that is so profound. And he said, and sometimes I watch some of the Western couples and I see like, that everybody goes out and they date a lot and they build these lists of, like they have to have this, 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 this. And he's like, and the expectations get built so high that oftentimes there's no one out there that can meet it. And I was like, oh gosh. So I think why that story comes forward is I just gave some advice on making these lists, but I also wanted to counterbalance it to say that, don't stay so attached to the list that you're not getting to know someone's soul and understanding whether you have a soul contract with them and how they may be able to support you in ways that you don't even know. They may be able to help you grow in ways that you don't even know, right? So staying open to seeing what is this relationship about. There's some, you're on a date. If you're going on a date, you have some connection to even say yes to them. And then just stay in the magic of exploring it. So I went all the way into dating. I know the question was about, having a more intentional date. And I think that's it, is kind of go all the way to the end, visualize what that person, looks like, feels like, smells like, sounds like, but also stay somewhat unattached to these external details because it's really about the soul inside, right? It's really about how that person expresses themselves and wanting to be there for them and helping them to be their best expression of themselves. So, all right. I love dating questions. I love love questions. I love all questions. Thank you for asking that. And if there's any comments that you have or anything that happens with your son, I would love to hear them in the comments below, even in the coming weeks and months. Okay, let's go on to the next question.